Welcome to the Geek 101 podcast, episode 259, Mask of the Phantasm. Your angel of death awaits. I'm Ariel Rada.
And I'm Andy Bowman.
And today we are going to do a retro review of the Batman the Animated Series film, Mask of the Phantasm. Andy, do we have any news before we get to that?
Rumors and rumblings abound, Ariel. Everything from a new Constantine movie being produced by J.J. Abrams to Tron 3 to Ant-Man and the Wasp 2 or Ant-Man 3, depending on who you talk to, starting filming in 2021. Just all kinds of rumors, nothing concrete at all.
Yeah, the rumor with Tron 3, that tweet that I read was a roller coaster of emotion. Because first I read that Tron 3, I was like, oh, I'm interested in Tron. So like my excitement went up, and then I read Jared Leto, and my excitement dipped down. And then I saw the source, which was just like a random like person on Twitter or an interview, whatever, and not like a noted source. And so my excitement just disappeared in a flash. So,
but apparently, if this is true, they are looking at getting Daft Punk back, which is also a positive.
Yes. Yeah. I would love Daft Punk to come back. I will not watch a movie with Jared Leto in it. So there's that. I can't stand.
I don't blame you.
I can't stand like Jared Leto, add Joss Whedon to that. Like, I'm just not about it anymore. But let's mention the Joss Whedon thing, Andy.
Oh boy. Yeah, so Ray Fisher, who I hope everyone recognizes as Cyborg from the Justice League, kind of came out and said that Joss Whedon was a director.
I mean, he came around and said that Joss Whedon had a very
abusive way of Sorry, yeah. That makes it sound like I was commenting on the quality. No, he was talking about Whedon kind of being an abusive director and just a terrible guy to work with. He called them gross, abusive, and unprofessional.
Yes, and we do know that Whedon has a history of this. He has a history with, I think her name was Charisma Carpenter on Buffy. I mean, the news came out about his ex-wife, who kind of told him that like Joss Whedon is like a quote unquote fake feminist. He tends to prey on younger women on his sets, right? Which is a form of, it's almost like a college professor and a young student, right? It's an abuse of power. So it's just not great, and I'm not surprised at any of it. But yeah, have you read Joss Whedon's Wonder Woman script?
I have now seen pictures of it, of scenes, and it's gross. I felt gross reading it. That is basically erotica.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's incredibly sexist, and it's inappropriate, and it's gross, and it has more of a male gaze than even or it's like
Zack Snyder's.
Right. It's like very similar to like Sucker Punch, right? Where it's just like guys, can you just not get like a raging sexist to direct your movie? You just went from one to another. It's really not great at all.
Well, what makes it funny is like this is like during a script. Like you don't need to. You know, stuff like the imagery should be all about storyboarding and stuff, right? Like, you really don't need to bring that into the script as much, especially when you're talking about the rippling of the energy through her body.
It's bad, and the whole thing is like the whole movie is framed through Steve Trevor and not through Diana. It's yikes. But let's move on to our main topic, if we're ready, Andy.
Yeah. I got nothing to say. There is apparently some kind of, you know, the internet press is saying that Ray Fisher is not saying more about why Joss Whedon was gross because of an NDA. I have no idea how accurate this is. Like, it's clickbait stuff at its finest here, trying to stoke a feud when it doesn't even seem like a feud. It just seems like Ray Fisher pointed out, hey, you know what? This guy was terrible, and I don't want to work with him again. And that's all there is to it. I don't want to see anything Joss Whedon's made. I don't want to support this anymore, which is a shame because I really, really love Buffy and Firefly.
Yeah, it does seem like after Buffy and Firefly, he just continued, and Avengers, right?
Don't remind me he did that too.
But like, if you look back, like how much of that film can we contribute to? How much of the success of that film can we contribute to him, or do we contribute to the Marvel system as a whole? That we know like works because of Kevin Feige and others.
I'm going to say I do think we have to attribute a lot of the success of the first Avengers to the banter between characters.
Okay.
And I think that's what made people come back and see it again. I think a lot of the humor in Avengers is what helped make it succeed. And if you watch the first 5 or so movies before the Avengers, they're not nearly as funny.
No, I think you're right. He does have experience working kind of with ensemble casts, and you needed somebody to do that who also kind of understood the characters. But I think once they kind of figured out that quote unquote voice they needed, or that banter,
right. There's a reason why Ultron didn't do as well. And I think that's the same reason why Avengers 1 succeeded, right? Like you always have to remember the amount of success of the Avengers is what blew everything out of the water and changed the shape of what a blockbuster movie was.
Yeah, but ultimately I do think that I don't want to say he cracked the code. I also don't want to discredit him for doing a good job on it, but also I don't think that if we look back with retrospect and we know everything about the system that Marvel does, I really don't think that it was as hard as we thought it was, right? Like, I think somebody eventually would have come along to make that work. I don't think we can say the same about the upgrade in action that you see from Winter Soldier moving forward.
Right. It's really hard. I do want to say that I also think because Whedon was so familiar with the characters and all the writings he's done, that really did help Avengers out a lot. And I think it even helped with some of the like the combo moves and the big climax. I think that really did a lot for the success of the Avengers. I don't know. It's hard. I think one thing we all have to start grasping is that people whose work we like can end up being terrible people.
Right. And I also think we have to acknowledge that people like, I don't want to say like Joss Whedon, but people who manipulate, like people in positions of power who manipulate and discredit and gaslight others and take advantage, we cannot, it's almost like the things that they have are tainted fruit in the sense that you have no idea who or what he stole and from whom. I don't think this necessarily applies to Whedon because he might have been misusing his like power and position in other ways. But like, for example, Weinstein, like we know, like I have no Weinstein and others, right? Like the Barbra Streisand hairdresser producer guy. I believe wholeheartedly that I would be a better creative advisor and producer than those guys. That I know more about film or I know more about story. but they're just in positions of power, and they steal the ideas of other people. We have a reckoning kind of on Twitter where people of color are just like, yeah, these people stole my idea, and they dismissed me, and they fired me, and they took advantage of all these people to make this film, which is greater than the sum of its parts. And so I think we have to look at certain directors and be like, are you as good as your record says you are? Because, I think Andy, both you and I, we know that to be true. For example, the Game of Thrones guys. David Benioff, his only writing credit before Game of Thrones was X-Men Origins of Wolverine. And there are countless people on that Game of Thrones production team that are better at his job than he is, but who gets the credit? It's those guys. And so I think we as a society have to kind of not assign credit where credit has not been earned.
Yeah. And what's interesting, though, I looked this up. Apparently he's a third-generation TV writer.
Who? Benioff?
No, Whedon.
Oh, that makes me like him less.
Yeah. I was just looking at his father wrote on the Golden Girls, and his grandfather worked on the Donna Reed show and the Dick Van Dyke show. So
wow. Well, there you go. Right, that's part of what his not everything, of course.
Right. But his unique brand of comedy, that's
wow. That explains a lot. The Golden Girls, that explains a ton.
Yeah.
Wow. So I think we've cracked it. The Golden Girls are just. The Avengers are just the Golden Girls, except superheroes. We did it.
Yeah. All right, let's get on. Let's move on away from horrible things, Ariel, and let's talk about something good.
Yeah. So we are talking Mask of the Phantasm, Andy. What were your thoughts when you first saw this in what year did this come out?
Came out in 93.
1993. Okay.
I probably didn't see it till 96, I would guess, is when I got around to renting it from Blockbuster. Ariel, this movie terrified me.
Okay.
As a small child, the design of the Phantasm is terrifying.
Okay, I remember being more frightened by the decrepit Tomorrowland amusement park.
Oh, yeah. That is another terrifying, and I can't wait to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But I was terrified, and also, to be honest, I was a little bit bored. All right, this was pitched to me as This was pitched to me as a Batman the Animated Series movie. Mm-hmm. Where's the Riddler? Where's Two-Face? Where's Penguin?
Sure. Were you bored when you were a kid when you watched it?
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Okay.
I'm not bored now, but as a 6 or 7-year-old kid, this movie did not resonate with me. I was kind of bored.
Okay, I never got that when I was a kid. So the Mask of the Phantasm, Andy, I was probably, my earliest memories of it are 5-6 years old. This was one of the few VHS tapes that I had that weren't recorded off the TV. It was this. It was Enter the Dragon, and it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 film. Those were the three movies that I even Star Wars. My first viewing of Star Wars came from a videotape that my uncle had recorded off of a TV showing. So.
Ariel, quick question about those TV recording VHSs. Did you ever get around to having something you loved and finding out it was going to air again, and deciding okay, I'm going to upgrade this by actually pausing the recording during the commercials?
For
me, that was the thing. You know, sometimes I would put it in a VHS to record something, and it would just record also the commercials and other stuff. And then I would get around to being no, I need this movie without the commercials. So I'm going to sit by the VCR to press pause on the recording during commercials.
Yeah, I did not. I was not the person to tape over, to tape them, so I never came to that problem.
Oh man, yeah, well, that's fortunate for you. I was always the one who had to figure out how to do it. Make sure the VHS was or VCR was put on the right channel, and God, it was so much harder to keep stuff those days.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual cassettes were like $40.
I say I don't remember. I don't have any memory of that. So what did we think of this movie? Almost 30 years later.
I really liked it. This is the movie that kind of makes me think that I'm not going crazy when I do watch a DC animated movie, and I'm like, this could have been better. And the first time they did it was really good. I really like this movie.
Okay, but today, what are your thoughts on it?
Right. No, I mean today, yes, I really liked it.
Okay.
I thought it was yeah. I thought it was the most Batman movie. If that makes any sense, Ariel.
Okay, I don't know if I get that today.
Like the story of this Bruce Wayne's character is the most accurate to what I want out of a Batman movie.
Okay, I don't personally agree with that. And I'll tell you like the one thing missing, of course, from it is there is no real detective work in it.
Oh, yes. Okay, I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
I just mean from like a character standpoint, like really capturing the duality of Bruce and Batman.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that this came out in 93, like you said, but the show only started in 92 and ended in 95. And so I could have sworn this was kind of a like fully formed idea after we got the entirety of Batman the Animated Series. But when in the middle of watching it, I'm like, there's no way that this came out after everything was done. The animation is different. The design of the Joker is not as sharp, blah, blah, blah. I think if they had decided to make this after the series had ended, I think we would have gotten a fully like complete Batman experience that you do get over the course of those few seasons of the show.
Yeah. Interestingly, Ariel, it didn't come out on VHS until May of 1994. Apparently, it was a big deal because it also came out on Laserdisc in April.
Okay.
Like that. That was the get the Laserdisc,
right.
see this before the VHS.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think if it came out later, we would have gotten another one of my favorite, the VHS that I rented way more, which is Batman and Freeze Sub-Zero.
Mm-hmm.
And that is much sharper. The designs are much. They just feel much more fleshed out.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I do like the duality of going back to very early Batman, like you were mentioning, right, where we are seeing him grappling with trying to become Batman. And so the moment that you also see in Batman in The Dark Knight, in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, where he's like, oh, I'm ready to like leave this behind and be with you. That never felt right to me as a Batman fan watching The Dark Knight. But it fits here because he's not Batman, right?
Right.
And so
not only is he not Batman, but we get that scene of him at his parents' grave.
Yes, like trying to, grapple with, I made this promise to my parents for vengeance and justice and whatever, with wow, I did not imagine a world in which I could be happy, and my parents would have wanted that for me. And I think that really works in this movie, and it really doesn't in The Dark Knight, and it doesn't work once he puts on the cowl. Once he commits to being Batman, and he gets that taste of going out in the night and beating up criminals or whatever, like that is the point with which you cannot pull him back in terms of like the ethos of Batman. But of course, it doesn't. It doesn't do it. This does it very well.
Yeah, and that's like not only is that the strong point of this movie, I think it's the story that I want to see a Batman origin story really grapple with, and I'm really hoping Robert Pattinson's Batman can do that.
I'm not confident. I think I don't think we'll ever get the ideal Batman story because creators are trying to imprint their own brand onto Batman instead of trying to lift up the brand of Batman. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah. They want to try doing something new, something to like, people can go, oh, well, those are Burton's Batman. That's Joel Schumacher's Batman. Rest in peace, Joel.
Yeah. That's
Nolan's Batman. This is Zack Snyder's Batman. They want something different. And a thing about this movie also, coincidentally, Ariel, I just saw Citizen Kane for the first time.
Okay, I've never seen it, but go on.
Okay. Well, according to IMDb, the structure of this film with the flashbacks are actually nods and references or homage to Citizen Kane.
Interesting. I never would have guessed.
Right. And after watching Citizen Kane literally last night, yes.
Huh.
This movie is nodding to Citizen Kane. There is something about Orson Welles' character who is not happy, but he thinks he might be able to be happy. There's this structure where things get worse and he gives into his despair, and it's almost the exact same beat for beat that Batman goes through.
Wow, that's really cool. I really like it. I'm okay with that, right? Like kind of putting a story's narrative structure to something else that always kind of works for me as long as you're staying true to the character.
Yeah, and they very clearly are in this.
Yes. But like, I think you made a great point with like Nolan's Batman. He's trying to pull like an Inception in every single movie. Just so annoying, right? And then you see Snyder's Batman, where it's just like, yeah, I'm just a super violent, manly, super jacked Batman who wants to kill Superman. Like, no one. It just frustrates me. Like, why can't we go back to even Burton's, of course, but like when you're watching Superman in the Richard Donner Superman movies, the spirit of the character is so pure. It is so quintessential Superman. And I think we get that with Captain America in the MCU. I don't think we get it with Iron Man, because that's Robert Downey Jr. Essentially being Tony Stark, not playing Tony Stark. But it's just I would love for somebody to just pull back, rein it in, and say we've gotten too far from what Batman is supposed to be, from the ideal Batman, the one you see stretched out over 3-4 seasons, 80 episodes of the animated series. This does that, right? Besides the fact that it's like it's missing a detective story, so it's not like a perfect version of it. But yeah, I think you're right. This is a very good Batman.
Right. And another thing about this movie that I like, and it's something I want more on-screen Batmans to do. There's a scene where the only truly new character, and that wasn't in the original animated series, Andrea Beaumont, she comes into her apartment, turns the light on, and Batman's there.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman hiding in the shadows, like right near people, is one of the most effective things to do in filmmaking. that's one of the scenes everyone remembers from The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Right? And I want that. I want the brooding Batman who is totally up in everyone's face, but so far away at the same time. There's this distance. He's just closely watching everything and everyone.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I think it's fine in, like, it's really surprising in The Dark Knight, but like that room is so bright and that he's so awkward in the suit that it's not like, it almost takes you out for a second. In John Wick, it's done really cool in that fight scene.
Yeah.
So good.
Why can't the director of John Wick do Batman?
I don't think these. You would need to find a very smart script. I think Batman falls. The problem with Batman and Lex Luthor and other characters in film, is that nobody writing those characters is as smart as those characters are supposed to be. You can explain away Iron Man's scientific expertise through scientific mumbo jumbo, but you cannot. But like, you have to be incredibly smart to come up with a mystery that can vex Bruce Wayne, a believable mystery that can vex Batman for a movie's length, and not just be the Joker is literally doing impossible things, right? Or Bane is literally doing things that don't make sense, like when he steals. Like, he steals data from the stock market and pretends to be Bruce Wayne and like sells all his stocks. And
the SEC would reverse that immediately.
But like, and that's the thing, right? It's just Nolan's just like, ooh, magic, look over here. But yeah, I guess there's not much to say. What do we think of the Phantasm, Andrea Beaumont? She has not, until I think last year, that character has not returned in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I really like this character. I like first of all, I love the visual design. It's terrifying. The Angel of Death thing is great. The mask is great. It fits so well with the animated series. I love the idea of this is somebody that Bruce Wayne once loved. I mean, she's essentially the Huntress, right? Like the origin story is so close to the Huntress, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like this, and I want to see this character done well. I want to see new Batman villains, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love the idea that like the character looks so much like Batman. The Huntress thing is a great point. I didn't even like make that connection. I wouldn't mind them tweaking the change. We do, the origin story, excuse me. We do know that the Phantasm was supposed to come back in a Batman Catwoman 12-issue series. It was supposed to debut this year, except the pandemic happened, so we were really unable to get
pandemic?
That. Right, my freedoms. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do. It's Tom King who's done, to various degrees, to various whomever you ask, right? They'll say, "Oh, I really enjoyed it," or "I didn't like it," whatever. But it's a little divisive, but overall, I think a good run on Batman.
Let's talk about the character that maybe they didn't do too faithfully. Ariel,
sure.
Let's talk about the Joker. The Joker gets a quasi origin story here.
Yes, and I think. Let me put it this way: do you think they would have done this if it wasn't already done by Tim Burton a few years earlier?
No, I don't think they would have. I'm also one of these people who thinks that the Joker does not need any kind of origin story.
Agreed. I don't think he works with an origin story.
And basically just making him a mobster, that's such a boring way out.
Yeah, I do. I don't mind the notion, right? The kind of currently updated notion that Ace Chemicals
Yeah.
Ace Chemicals was trying to replicate a Lazarus pit, and that's why it's like a goofy, funky, broken Lazarus pit. And so this normal guy falls in, comes out like this, and just stays this way instead of like Ra's al Ghul, who's able to like bring it back because it's a perfect Lazarus pit. Like that completely explains why a normal person can end up like this, and why he goes from whatever to evil, impossible, super genius.
Right. Now, Ariel, quick question. Do you think Ace Chemicals is actually owned by Ace the Bat Hound?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I knew you could say that. And then, of course, we do know that he does it with Harley, right? He dips Harley into the thing. And this is all tied in, of course, to that very recent, I think, Scott Snyder run where they suggested that the Joker was the devil. But yeah, we don't need a Joker origin story. But how do you like his character, like that aside? How do you like him in this?
I actually kind of really like him. First of all, I love his hideout is this, you mentioned the Tomorrowland defunct amusement park. And this personally goes to me also thinking more of Gotham as being Chicago, because that's like a Chicago World Fair type thing.
Yeah.
Right. I also love the Joker making jokes for no one but himself. Right. Like hitting on his robo wife.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's no one there. There's no one around. He's doing it for himself. And I think I just like that a lot. I like that as a character quirk. I like him taking Abe Vigoda's character, Sal, and saying like, "Oh, excuse the security system," and it's a stupid little robot dog. I love all of that. I also love him taking umbrage that somebody is going around killing people, and he needs to find out who it is.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about. So you touched on two of my favorite things about the Joker. One is that he has his own sense of humor and what is funny and what, and that kind of delusion that you don't get from movie Jokers, because I feel like they don't want to commit to it. Like, but it's what makes Mark Hamill's version of it so frightening, where it's just like, yeah, this guy is brilliant beyond all measure. And also, he's literally talking to himself. In the quiet moments, you know that the Joker is not putting on an act. At least we see it here, right? This version of the Joker. He is not acting crazy. He's like, he is an impossible, insane super criminal.
Right. And he also figures out who the Phantasm is.
Yeah, there's a bit in the comic book called Infinite Crisis, mm-hmm. where the Joker is left out of a plan, and like that comes back to haunt the supervillains. Like you don't, but one is like you don't want to loop in the Joker, and you also don't want the Joker mad at you. So it's like this thing is like Batman is the only person in the entirety of the DC universe who can go toe to toe with this guy, and villains are afraid of him. Heroes are afraid of him. Everybody gives Gotham a wide berth because the Joker rests in Gotham and Batman. But I love that bit about Joker.
Right. I also love that when Sal thinks that the Batman has snapped and started killing mobsters, first of all, they realized how screwed they are if this is the way it's going to be. Right?
Yes,
that Batman is going to kill them all, and there's nothing they can do. But second, the Joker's response is beautiful. He's just like, "Oh, I finally won. Maybe he's finally snapped. Yes."
Right. Yeah. He's like, "I finally did it," and then you realize that like, but then he gets upset like when he knows that it's somebody else and he didn't do it. Right. So.
Right.
Yeah. I love the idea of supervillains fighting each other to get to Batman, to unmask Batman, right? And so that's why it always bothers me when somebody figures out who Batman is, no one should know. Like, it should be almost a joke at how little people know who Batman is, and yet they always do it for writers love to do it for like a schlocky region, like in Hush. Like, we don't need everyone to know. We just need people to fight over it. It's what makes him so interesting, or the villains anyway.
Right, and as soon as a villain finds out, like, they should be rubbing it in Two-Face's faces.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? It's one thing that always kind of bothered me. I do think that the Joker is one of the people who doesn't really care who Batman is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, it's silly. It was great that Beaumont, of course, figures it out, and it makes so much sense that she figures it out, and the parallels between her and Batman work so well.
Yeah, but she figures it out, of course, like, because he was not.
She sees him next to his grave.
Well, that was done with Batman, but I think she only figures it out because she knew Bruce before he became Batman.
Right.
In a sense, like, she doesn't make that connection unless she knows him before he's careful.
Yeah, and that's another great scene where he's practicing jujitsu and she completely throws him for a loop and beats him. But she sees Bruce Wayne doing this, and seeing Bruce have to dress up and kind of try and be like, okay, they weren't scared of me though, and I need to figure that out. Like, that's great.
Yeah. What else about Mask of the Phantasm really spoke out to you, Andy?
I mean, the scene at his parents' grave. I really like that. That completely, it stood out to me. It was something we talked a little bit about earlier, but just him begging his parents to be free. Like, that shows the pathology of Batman.
Yeah. How broken he is, and how much he probably just needs some therapy, and not a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate of beating people up on the street.
And also his offer to just give the city money so they can hire more cops, and then he can stop crime that way.
Yikes!
But I mean, it shows his worldview, and it also shows that maybe he knows on some level that he's not doing much good.
Yeah, I think he does. Here's my last question or note. Would this work? Let's say 85% of this film translated to live screen. Does it work? Tweak a few things here or there.
I think the reason why it does not work in live action, first of all, is the costume design for Phantasm would need to be very specific to hide, who it is. But second of all, this is such a short movie already.
Well, no, what I mean is, do the story beats and action sequences and settings, can we translate that?
Yes, I do think it would be difficult to find a Joker who could go mano a mano with a character like the Phantasm, but I would love to see it. I think this could work. This should be treated almost as a storyboard.
Yes, I think it would. I think you'd have to cut that ridiculous motorcycle scene. I think you'd have to. I think you can easily get around with the Phantasm costume. Especially today, right? I was like, oh, it was just some dumb technology thing. I would love to see a live action version of the showdown at the Gotham Fair, the decrepit Gotham Fair.
God, it's so creepy and wonderful, and retrofuturism is something I love as a design. Yeah, and just seeing the world of tomorrow is nothing, is crepit, and like there's something poetically beautiful about that.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, the issue is who can we get to play a Joker? And as much as we love to say how easy it is, as excellent as both Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger are, they are not this good at it. They're not as good as Mark Hamill. I know the physical, visual transformation is not there, but how many people can we get that can replicate that voice and that laugh and that energy?
It's very few. I have no one off the top of my head, and I don't think it would be anyone we could predict.
Yeah, they'd have to really invest in finding someone and training them and stuff like that. Anything else about Mask of the Phantasm?
Wait, what about Jared Leto?
Oh my god! I'll just do Tom Hardy. He'll just do the same exact performance he did in Venom. God, I hated that movie. I hate it more and more and more as the years go on. All right, Andy, is it time to move forward to homework?
It's time to move forward to homework, man.
All right, what do you got?
All right, there is this really, really good movie on Amazon Prime called The Vast of Night. It is it's very Twilight Zone-esque. It is, it's it's creepy but not scary, right? It is about a town in the 1950s in New Mexico that a radio station operator receives a weird noise, and it's about figuring out what that noise is, right? It's a directorial debut. It is beautiful and well directed and just well acted. Please give it a shot. It is called The Vast of Night. If you like old Twilight Zone, you will love this movie.
Okay, so Vast of Night, it just premiered last year.
Yeah, it came out on Amazon Prime at the end of May.
Directed by Andrew Patterson. Andrew Patterson, not very well known. But yeah, check that out, The Vast of Night. My homework this week, I binged the entire... Did I do this last week? Did I mention Patriot Act?
No.
I don't think so. Okay, so I watched Patriot Act, which is a show that premieres, I guess, weekly by Hassan Minhaj. And he basically breaks down the major issues that are going on around the world. He provides sources, he provides video evidence, and then he provides a lot of times an actionable way of contributing to the solution, at least for American issues, right? So he tackles things like the student loan crisis. He tackles things like the Electoral College, what's happening over in the elections in India, the attacks on journalism in the Philippines, which have recently come to light. And so he loves saying his like basically corporations are bad and the government is supporting corporations and we should do our best to stop them from exploiting the world. Otherwise we're all going to die. And it's just like, but he finds ways to let you so that the average person can help.
Right. What is it that his son calls himself? It was like just Brown John Oliver.
Yeah, something like that. But it makes him laugh because people love to have him come on their shows and news networks as an expert, and so a lot of times he says he declines because he's not an expert. He's just providing you. He's just pooling the information and sharing it with people and making jokes about it. But it's the problem with like news today, right? It's become entertainment. It's become sensationalized, the TV news, when it needs to not be that anymore. And that's part of the things he talks about.
Yeah, there was a really great interview he had on the Colbert's late night show about a week ago that was really good and talking about how they're getting on with quarantine. I cannot recommend Patriot Act enough.
Yeah, it's great. If you want a food version of it, I started watching Broken Bread with Chef Roy Choi over on Hulu. It's a very similar thing, but it's all about food instead of just just the world at large. So check out that homework. Andy, how are you during this quarantine time? Are you surviving out there?
Yeah, I'm surviving. I also have the fun of turning 30 today, Ariel. So.
Oh, today! Happy birthday, Andy!
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just having a lot of, crises about that. But overall, I'm doing fine. I, found solace in starting a new podcast, monkey off my backlog, going over my old backlog of media and pop culture. That's why I watched Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
What about you, Ariel? How are you?
We're doing all right over here in New Jersey. Summer break has officially started as of a couple weeks ago, and so I just spend a lot of time like writing and reading and stuff. So there's that. But let's get out of here, Andy. Where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter and Letterboxd at Hebrews Pale Ale.
Or you can find me at Portly Island Boy. You can find us at Geek 101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook and Patreon. Email us geek101pod@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. Class dismissed.
Perfect.